Bam.
This is Brian Andrews.
And I'm Jeff Wilson. We are Andrews and Wilson, and you're watching the Break It Down Show.
I love it. I love that I get to do this. And by the way, sitting here in the easy chair waiting for me to tell him he can talk is Jeff Bosley. And Jeff is here in part because he's always trying to get that next role. And I'm hoping that this will at least create a fun conversation where Jeff Bosley is hoping to maybe be in the new series that Andrews and Wilson are developing. So we'll have a little bit of fun with that. And I like to take these opportunities to put people together. These guys know each other, but it's just a fun conversation. The last time we talked, fellas, you guys were gearing up to get geared up, and now you are fully moving. You've got things in development. You're writing for it was Web Griffin. Now you're writing also under the Clancy banner, plus your own 3 different series. Do you guys have any bandwidth left at all? I mean, holy shit!
It's exhausting, Pete. It's exhausting. I blame Brian. We had this idea of, you know how it is and Jeff, you will appreciate this too in Hollywood, but in the print media world, there's this idea of I can get enough ideas out there, maybe one will land, you know what I mean? And Pete, we talked about this before, how that was our model with our writing. We had a couple of ideas, we blasted them all out, and then we were blessed to find that they all landed, and so that was like a blessing and a curse. And sort of the same thing has happened here. So we consider ourselves nothing but blessed, of course, but we do have a bunch of series. We got this new one, the Techno Thriller series. You're going to love, Pete. Sandbox is coming out in July. We still got all the other series up and running. And now we got it's close to a dozen media projects in various stages of development or pre-development. So it's, be careful what you wish for and be ready to work your ass off when it gets here, I guess. That's a fair summary, Brian. What do you think?
Yes, I remember when we said, what if all of these things actually hit? And then we were like, well, that's impossible.
Yeah.
They all did talk about
it. You're like, well, we'd be screwed.
I know.
So you guys have screwed yourself. What does that look like?
Yeah, that just means we're working like investment banker hours. I mean, you remember back in the day when you were like 25 and you're like, well, I can work 80 hours a week. It's no big deal. 100 hours a week. Oh, okay, I can do that. We're sort of back to that. It's like working all day and then in the evenings and on weekends and stuff. So we just got to push through this like really, really like productive, like intense time. And I think then we'll finally take a breather, but it could be another year or two before that happens.
Yeah. I was going to say that's wishful thinking. I was going to say that might lead into a decade because I was literally having the same conversation where you're talking about like it's against all. Probably I can safely say all 3 of us are wiring from our past lives to just throw crap against the wall and see what sticks. That's the opposite of what we were ever beat to death to do, and we're used to the cliche sniper shot. Now we're just like blind shotgun blasting. and I was like, a year sounds wishful. Like you've doomed yourself at least for a decade of caffeine and nicotine somehow right now.
Yeah.
We've got the caffeine taken care of with Bone Frog coffee. So we always got to give a shout out to our bro.
There you go.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim Crookshank, for the Bone Frog coffee.
Yeah, Tim's great. Are you drinking their wine too?
Yeah. Have you had his Merlot, Pete?
I've had one of them.
You did?
Yeah. He sent one of them to me. I don't remember which one it was, but yeah.
I'm not a Merlot guy. I feel like Merlot is kind of a wine for people who don't like wine, right? Like you want to drink red wine, but you don't really like red wine, so you get Merlot, and that's sort of a trite. Obviously, there's some great Merlots out there. But I got to tell you, he sent Merlot. He was going to send us some bottles, and he sent this Merlot. And I remember opening the box going, it's a Merlot. Wow. It was the best bottle of wine I've ever had in my life. I tell the story so often. It's unbelievable. So Bone Frog Cellars, you got to check it out. He's got white wine now. He's got several different red blends. It's really, really good wine. He's a good dude. I love that guy.
I'm typing in Bone Frog Cellars in the thing here. So Jeff, you got to fill some time.
I was just gonna say I've been trying to pimp Dunkin' Donuts forever, and they just for some reason they're too big to take my phone call because this is just pure Dunkin', and all I got is Horse Soldier bourbon. That's I know like the whole Green Beret Navy SEAL thing, but at the end of the day, that they're
Jeff, were you at the thing in Tampa when they had the whiskey and they did the debut of the it was during Suffolk. They did last year. They did the debut. Christian Krempel did the debut of the documentary. Were you there?
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. No, but I wasn't able to do that. Yeah. I thought it was awesome. Like I watched from the sidelines for sure. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I was there and I didn't know if maybe this was before we had connected. So I didn't know if
good.
maybe
I was gonna say that would suck if I was there and you were there.
Yeah, that'd be crazy, right?
Yeah, no, it's that and then I don't know, like it's not in a pitching it because I don't get anything out of this, but the thing I dug about like the horse soldiers, like they actually, for those who don't know, they actually took iron from 9/11 and they actually used that as their mold to cast the metal plaque on each bottle for the horse soldier bourbon. For those who don't know, watching this, like the whole horse soldier, Green Berets going into Afghanistan and Iraq on horses, the whole Chris Hemsworth movie, but that's a statue outside. I'm sure everybody that goes to the 9/11 thing goes, what's this soldier in kid on a horse all about? You know, like, until you get to the plaque, I'm sure everybody goes, what is that? Like, is this Zorro?
Yeah. And the ones
we're trying to find,
like, well, he doesn't look anything like Chris Hemsworth.
We're trying to find O'Malley's.
That's a whole other conversation.
Statue. Yeah,
Right.
trying to find O'Malley's and get a beer. I wanted to ask, and this is an interesting thing. I think that the SF, so we'll just say the Green Beret versus SEAL community, the SEALs have done a really great job of marketing themselves. Does that in any way inform like how you guys write? You're like, well, we'll have Green Berets in there, but you put SEAL on something, at least right now, it just is it's a real brand. I mean, it's a thing that people are drawn to.
When we started out, obviously there was a lot of naval special warfare heavy, but that's because that was our background. We're both
right.
guys. I served in that community, and that was sort of what we knew. But I will say, and Jeff, you can attest to this, our war, for lack of a better term, is where joint force really became a real thing and not just a buzzword. In the mid 2000s and all the way till just a few years ago, all the way till today, probably, everything that was joint was truly joint. So, I definitely work side by side with guys from, Green Berets, from Army SF, with Delta guys, with CIA guys. Like there was, and girls, like there was men, women, there was joint, it was military, it was DOD, it was non-military. It was truly an integrated force. And Pete, we talked about this many times on this show, but so I think that we set out even early in the very first Tier 1 book. We definitely wanted to have this joint kind of representation, and so you'll probably remember we had several characters that had Army pedigree, and that's been true in all the series that we've written, all the way through to you'll see an Army SF guy represented in Sandbox, which is not a military thriller, it's more of a techno thriller. But so we've tried to represent everybody and just paint the world the way it is, and we'll let the guys that write books about themselves worry about themselves, I think.
That's genius. Well, I was going to say that's the one thing, and I say this genuinely as a fan of reading all this stuff that we read. Like I think all of us get into this crud because we actually enjoy it as a reader, a consumer, a watcher, whatever it is. If you didn't like it, you wouldn't be creating it. But that was the one thing that I liked is like anybody that goes, any SEAL that sees a starring Green Beret, Jack Trammell or whatever fake name they use, it's kind of like, oh God, a Green Beret book. And every Green Beret that sees a SEAL book goes, oh God, a SEAL book. But you give that, I mean, anybody that says otherwise, but that was the thing that I got because I wanted to read as a fan because I don't care. I just want to watch a cool movie or read a cool book or watch a cool TV show. But then again, don't get me wrong, the minute I started seeing the Delta or like agency men and women, I was like, this is actually, you're grabbing people and not making it just like this one stinking audience. And then that will tie into like, my SEAL buddies. And that was like to tap on and reinforce what you said is I went into SWIC going, oh God, I have a SEAL in the Delta course, but then that was the first time I was like, oh, we really are integrated because I started during the integration section of life. So I didn't have like a BC and an AD, where it was like almost conflict, almost like opposition as far as like almost like in a sport, like the Cowboys versus or the Red Sox versus the Yankees.
Right.
It was truly that we had a SEAL on our team, you know, and when I did, occasionally they would need a Delta and a stack over at 3-letter agencies. And that was the first time I was like, oh God, this makes sense. It's literally combining MVPs with the same mission thing. We might rib each other, but it was awesome to actually watch that MVP, that sounds really arrogant, kick ass and accomplish it because it was a stack of MVPs versus like this arrogant, nope, we're over here, and we're going to tell everybody we're joint, when in reality that is actually happening for the first time. And I look back on it and I miss the hell out of it, because the autonomy was awesome to hear and read about, but at the end of the day, if somebody's better at something or they can enhance the mission or whatever it happens to be, like the 3-letter agency females, like a lot of people like just assume they don't exist, but that was a huge asset for us. And I think the fact A, you wrote it in a book, and B, it reflects an accurate thing, whether people know it or not. It's like, that's the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And hopefully when you're picking up the book, you feel like, you know, that joint, that MVP sort of mentality that you mentioned, you feel like that's the vibe that the Task Force Ember team gives off, right? So, I mean, that's always what we wanted to accomplish, is just that, you know, these people are professionals, and there's some ass grabbing and there's some digs and but at the end of the day, it's the mission that matters, and none of them are so arrogant to think that they could do that mission without their team.
Is that why you wrote it in the third person? Or is that just a choice that you randomly made, so it wasn't always Dempsey saying I, like by writing?
I mean, that's a great question, and I think what you see right now in publishing is, especially for the young adult segments, I mean, everything is written in first person, and even goes so far as first person present tense. Yeah. But we really like third person because we like to get into multiple characters' headspace. So it really gives us that freedom to give, Grimes a POV and Jarvis a POV, but also, our antagonists. That's a big part of, I think, what separates Tier 1 from a lot of the other series out there is, we don't have that villain stroking the cat type of James Bond type of villain.
Exactly.
We're very much, hey, this guy who's, on the other side shooting at you, he'd be your we got a villain. Wait, no, I want to go back. You could pet that cat the whole time we're on.
She won't like that.
But we just want to feel like,
kicking a cat.
The guy shooting back at you, he feels just like the real enemy, or just like, if you were in his shoes, you probably have a lot of the same feelings that he does.
Yeah, that idea of your antagonist being the hero of his story is important. And I agree with Brian. I think it's one of the things that we've done pretty well that does make our books a little bit different. I'm not sure that the average reader says that's why it's different or they like it more or whatever, but I do think it's a part of it, even if it's subconscious. Just it makes those characters a little more real, a little less cartoonish. And the fact that we take those characters in addition to our protagonists, we arc them out. Like, it's not like in real life, Jeff. You don't just go out and the first night you find the HVT and you cap them and then that's the end of it. Like, sometimes it takes 3 years to hunt that son of a bitch down. Yeah. And there's all kinds of operations that go into that. So in addition to giving them a POV so that they become real and have their own story to tell, we arc some of those antagonists out over multiple books. And you'll see in Dempsey, our book that just came out, there's a closure on a character that was introduced 3 books before that, right? Like, we have been building towards Dempsey. Yeah. Dempsey is the first time we didn't do it in 3. That's book 4 of sort of this Russian trilogy, if you will. Yeah. And it took that long to see where the Arcady arc would land.
And so that's what I was just going to say. That's what I was going to say is the Arcady character. That's the one thing, and this is a little artsy fartsy actor stuff, but they always teach you, at least in a reputable world of some sort of performance art, that bad guys don't know they're bad guys. Like, they're not sociopaths and so dissociated. Like, they're aware what they might be doing is less than ideal, but they don't think they're the bad guy. And it's exactly like you said, is they are the hero in their life. They're, God forbid I go super artsy fartsy, but like the whole hero's journey, Dempsey's on his, Arcady's on his own, et cetera, et cetera. And like, that is me personally why I love the third person, is because like you said, you're not just sitting here going, Dempsey is good, Arcady is bad. Like, we identify obviously with the good guy, but the fact he doesn't think he's the bad guy, and that guy's doing all these things for love of his country, et cetera, without spoilers, that makes people want to watch that show, because it gets, God, you know, it sounds really cliche, one-dimensional. And
well, but I think it's even more than that, Jeff. I think I agree with everything you said, but I also think that it allows you, whether it's in a book or a film or a television show, it allows us to explore those gray areas, right? There's a lot that one of the buzz terms in PTS right now is moral injury. And there's a lot being written. There's a lot being done with that in the therapy world. Important work. Because I can tell you, and I know you could tell me too, we won't get into details, of some morally gray areas where we were involved in things that were gray. And, you know, how did you justify that? How did you get through it in the moment? You got through it in the moment because you're the good guy, because you're the hero. And we try to recognize that our antagonists suffer from those same things. So like you were saying, they do some things that they know this is morally wrong, but why would they do that then if they're decent human beings? Because they love their country, or they believe in their cause, or whatever. And so it does afford you this amazing opportunity to delve into that gray area. And in Dempsey, in the character of Dempsey, and in the book 7, Dempsey, I think we explore that more than in any other things that we write. That idea of going from that black and white door kicker world into the gray world of covert operations, where right and wrong are gray, and you gotta pick your cause and hope you're right. And so that's something we explored a lot, and you see it come to a head in Dempsey, which was really fun for us as writers. That's for sure.
Yeah, even in the climax of Dempsey, he's starting to realize, wait a minute, what have I been reduced to with this mission? And he has to go through the machinations that Jeff was just talking about. He actually goes through those while he's sitting on his sniper rifle, thinking, like, am I doing the right thing? Like, what's the moral? Is there a moral reason for what I'm doing? And he has to walk himself through. Yes, okay, there is a reason why I'm doing this. I am doing the right thing. It does benefit the greatest number of people for the greatest good, and that allows him to. I don't want no spoilers. It allows him to finish his mission. But even somebody as experienced and a veteran like Dempsey, still, like, even in the moment, is thinking, am I doing the right thing?
Is this okay? Yeah. It was one of my favorite parts of the book. I think you wrote the first draft of that, although I don't remember. It's hard to keep it straight. But that was one of my favorite parts of Dempsey, was that little scene, and I won't tell any more than that because I don't want to ruin it for anyone that hasn't read the book. But that scene where he's got that time, he's got that downtime of waiting for a moment, and he has nothing to do but be inside his own head and ask himself those questions, because in real life we've all been there, and I thought that for that reason, I think that was one of my favorite parts of that book.
That moral injury, the boundary you have to set as someone who operates in a very dangerous spots, and you also have to realize you make mistakes, and it's a stack of things, not dudes on the door, but strategic to tactical stack of things where if anybody makes a miscalculation, if some commander approves something that maybe shouldn't be approved, and a dude like me walks into the village 5 weeks later, and I'm like, holy fuck, we killed a bunch of kids. We for real did this. Man, there's just all kinds of opportunity in terms of story richness where you could like switch the camera back 5 weeks later, and there's a Pete walking into a village, and he realizes, oh fuck, like, this is a way bigger mess. Maybe you got the right guy, but there was some other kind of thing that happens. Because I'd walk in on these calamities all the time where our presence, whatever it was causing a significant amount of human atrocity. And I had, as much as I have like a line in combat, like if you get within this circle, the game is on, it's life and death. If you're out here, I'm aware of you and I'm prepared to go life and death. There also has to be these boundaries that you have as an operator. You say, anything here, this is all black. This is you and me, and that's it. But out here is that gray zone, and we all operate in. When I say gray, you have to have that combat lens to zoom way in and go, this looks like black, but when you zoom in, you realize it's charcoal, not quite black. And so you have all of these different timelines and what is black and what is not black. And then, by the way, when you make someone operate in that charcoal area, if you're a senior person, if you're up the chain, if you're an SES something, boy, you've got to have a gigantic ass to get chewed on, because those guys are, I promise, they're going to make mistakes, whether it's personal character mistakes or decisions in the moment, because you can't operate quickly. And that's got to feed your guys' conversations, because you guys know all these people. You talk to all of us. I'm going to shut up now after setting all that up.
Well, I will tell you first, a couple of things. First, I really object to you humanizing all you J2N2 guys, because the only way we prevent moral injury is by blaming all that shit on you. So
rolls downhill. Unending.
You've removed my moral safety net. So thanks for that. But no, I agree with you, Pete. I think that being able to, and you know, we have relationship across, you know, with people in ops and people in intel, people in med, like all the N's and J's. Like, we have friends and relationships with people in all those shops. We hear their stories. We hear, you know, what they struggle with in the aftermath, like what you just shared. And thanks for sharing that. Like, we're getting to a place where we can share those things, right? Yeah. We kept them bottled up for years, and we've seen the result of that. You know, we lost another member of the Naval Special Warfare community last week, as you guys know, and to suicide. It's not letting up, and it's not letting up because we keep it inside. So being able to freely share those things, those issues and struggles that we have, the moral struggles, as well as the other aspects of PTS, is crucial in our own survival. But it's also what allows us to tell good, rich stories that honor the people that we love, honor the brothers and sisters that we served with. That's what we want to do, Brian and I. We want our books to entertain. We're not writing War and Peace. We get that. You know, this isn't Grapes of Wrath. We're not changing the world. It's entertainment. But if our entertainment can bring some insight and some honor to the people that we've served with, then we've served maybe some higher purpose than just making sure we can pay for our kids to go to college. So I love these kinds of conversations, Pete, and I applaud you for bringing that up, because it's not easy to do. Even today, it's not easy to do.
Yeah, and even if it's justified, you know, you still have to carry that moral backpack. You're like, yeah, you know, I've been on the bench. I've been reading the reports. I've seen the traffic. And you're like, this person's evil, and it's no problem with that person getting killed. I'm going to push my portion of the packet forward and let someone else make the decision, because that's their job. But that person is still dead today, in part because I pushed my pack. Like, it clears my station, on to the next station, right after I hunted this guy for, like, you know, and we all know this, like, 36-hour days. Like, I'm not leaving this chair, and because this is hot, it's happening right now. They're not going to relent. I'm not going to relent. So you sit there and you work it, knowing the whole time that this ultimately concludes with someone busting down a door, or someone, you know, lasing a target. And even though justified, still dead, still on my conscience, right? And that's everybody.
Both sides of it, right, Pete? Like,
yeah.
Sometimes you lose teammates on those sides. Sometimes there's collateral damage. And, you know, if you ever stop feeling that way, you are in the wrong business. People that don't carry that baggage have no business being in that talk, because they are sociopaths, and they really shouldn't be making life and death decisions without some of that moral struggle. I hope that all the people at every level struggle with those decisions, because otherwise way worse things are going to happen. So yeah, it's a tough thing to talk about. It's a tough thing to reflect in fiction, but really important. And that's something that we've tried to do in the Tier 1 series, and in all our series, frankly, to reflect the struggles, the real moral struggles, as well as, you know, the PTS stuff that we all struggle with as well.
I want to, you alluded to it, and I want to make sure we mention it, because Mike Day was a bad motherfucker. He's one of the dead people that we had on the show. He got shot 27 times and took his own life last week. And there is a thing that happens, right, in this world. And I don't want to be all morbid and get terrible. Let's get back to the fun stuff here in a minute, but I don't want to walk past Mike Day's death without saying that is a time release fuse or capsule that was lit a while back. Anybody who knew Mike and interacted with him is deluding themselves if they don't think, but we all saw that it was a deep problem with this person. He's not able to adapt to life. He's not able to move on to the next thing. You know, like how he did the last time he did our show. I mean, he's never doing it again, because I don't want to put him through it. And he was hammered. You know, you can't be drunk and do someone's show. And being a professional position, I'm trying to sell my book. I'm not talking bad about Mike. I'm just talking facts here. And so when you see that and you know that he is on this freight train going in a direction, this is not a person that's easy to like, hey, reorient, go this way, like get into whatever it's going to be. We can't lose sight of the fact that these things in real life really do have an impact, and we are burning at 3, 4, 6 times rate the life of someone who's out on teams or, deploying all the time, going through divorces. And oh my gosh, like, yeah, I've cut my retirement in half 3 times now because I love women and I love deploying. You end up with like now what am I going to do? Right. So I don't want to walk past Mike Day without saying that there's an actual physical cost that we have to keep track of. And then I'm going to let you guys talk.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Mike, and then we should move on to happier stuff. But because it's so temporal, it just happened, and a lot of us are still reeling. I think when you think of a guy like Mike, the reason that one hits really hard is because of the work he did to get to where he was. Like, and you don't know what's going on in a guy. You don't know what's going on in a relationship, in a marriage, in a home. Sounds like you saw some hints of it in your relationship with him. But a lot of us looked at Mike as like the guy that we could learn from in terms of resiliency. I mean, that was his thing, right? Resiliency. He became the SOCOM resiliency guy. He wrote the book, amazing book on resiliency and how to get past some of those things that he clearly struggled with. And so when a guy like that, who's like a public figure for resiliency, loses the battle with the demons, the rest of us mortals are like, well, shit, what hope is there for me, right? Like, I just wait for the Reaper now because, I mean, my God, if the resiliency guy can't make it through, then I guess it's just a matter of time for me. And I'm not trying to sound morbid.
Sure.
But I think that if we don't talk about these things, the guys that are moving in the direction of where Mike ended up on the day he lost his battle aren't going to reach out for the help that they need. And so we have to be really open and frank about it. We have to be able to say, all of us on this call, we have to be able to say, I struggle with these things. I have days where I worry about my moral entry and my PTS. And instead of looking at it as a negative thing, like, oh, well, if it happened to Mike, it's going to happen to me. We should look at it as an opportunity to intervene in our own lives sooner, to get with those teammates, make those phone calls, do those check-ins, we all have those guys, right? You've probably got 3 or 4 of them that like when I heard about Mike, there were 4 phone calls I made in that first 30 minutes. Hey, bro, I know you probably heard, you doing okay? What's up? How are you? We got to keep doing that because apparently there's no expiration date on this ship.
There's not. Yeah.
Right. That was 2007.
Yeah.
Mike's major physical injury, which most certainly related to his other injuries, was in 2007, man. Like, that's a long time. He carried that shit a long time.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do something more fun, and we'll change gears onto the less heavy stuff. Hey, I got a guy who thinks he could be Dempsey on the show here with us, and we're not asking for commitments, obviously, but how fun is this? Look, Jeff will not make a secret of what job he wants.
Since he's here, we might as well do the audition. So start doing push-ups, and we'll tell you when you can stop. Dempsey
I'll argue
can go for about 5 minutes. So
I was going to say, I'll argue as I've done my homework. He's old and broken. He would not want to do that. he would bitch and moan and go, God, these
good save, good save, Bosley. That was good save,
right?
Yeah, I don't know. All right, pull-ups, fine, pull-ups. No, but I think Jeff definitely has the look and the demeanor. That's for damn sure, right?
And he certainly got the resume, right?
Yeah, and the resume. Jesus.
Unfortunately, he's talking to the 2 people with the least.
I know.
Right. That's just the thing.
You're hired.
Everybody,
never mind. Jeff and Brian backyard play, right, Jeff? We'll just we'll set up a little stage and we can act it out.
Yeah,
we'll do the school play version of Dempsey.
Yeah. Everybody who knows what being an executive producer really means, raise your hand, right? Like, so.
Oh my God.
The idea that we're going to have any final say is the greatest fiction and fantasy of them all. So
it is. This is true. There's And look, it is its own business. And so someone like, oh, I want my sons to be executive producers too. What's their role? Well, you want to get this movie made, they've got to be executive producers. And you're like, aha, I see. Just to include like writing, like, yes, you're a writer. However, you don't have any writing credits yet, so you're not going to get a writing credit this time. But this is how you get to the point where the movie you write, you get credit for. It's all these things where this club, and it takes a lot of money. It is very risky to put anything out there. They know how to do these things, and it's very particular. And the guys that make all the money that you never heard of have huge houses up on the hills. They really do. So there's a lot of things that we all have to learn coming from whether it's writing or military, whatever, to get involved with something like this. And when, by the way, 99% of these projects don't get made because the great idea in your head has to survive on a lot of desks, and a lot of people have to say yes. A lot of money and a lot of not just money but influence is wagered on these things, and so we can't lose track of that. It's true. Jeff and Brian have very little say in anything once they sign those rights over.
Well, I think what you're getting at is an important point, which is, when you think about the military, for people who are from outside the military, they can look at the defense industrial complex or a particular branch of service and they'll say, a lot of these things don't make sense. From the outside perspective, you say, well, why do they do that? Or that doesn't make any sense at all.
Never.
No, you have to realize, like, there are a gazillion layers of really, really smart people. And there's all kinds of decisions, cost-benefit decisions that are being made. And it's the same thing with Hollywood. It might look like it's full of a bunch of morons and buffoons from the outside, but that's not reality. Reality is, like any business, the smart, really motivated, hardworking people are the ones who succeed and end up having the power. So, before you can become an executive producer on a project, you have to bring something to the table. So in our case, we make a good argument that, hey, the thing we bring to the table is the subject matter expertise. These are our characters. This is our series. So if you need somebody to help make sure it's done right, we're your guys. There's not a lot of other people can say that because, we're the only writers of the series. But like you said, Pete, to get a seat at the table, if you're not the writers, what do you bring to the table?
Yeah.
Is it money? Is it connections? Is it influence? It has to be one of those things.
And that's what we've learned about, we're very blessed that all but one of the dozen or so things we have in various stages, we are executive producers. And what we've learned is that means almost nothing on literally nothing on some of the projects. It just means, yeah, we'll give you that if you'll sell us your IP. All the way up to, we've been very involved in other projects where we've been part of the decision making of who's going to be the showrunner and who's hearing pitches, and then we now have a project that we're going to be writing for another. So we have the whole spectrum from never talk to us again to weekly meetings to see what's going on, and now an opportunity to write. So yeah, we've learned a lot about what's going on. And we still have a ton to learn, obviously.
And by the way, don't you dare get it wrong on your first try, because there's often not a second shot.
And you're done. Well, and that's the one thing is I remember, like, I'll bastardize the quote, but Matt Damon was being interviewed about the industry now, and with the loss of DVDs and Blu-ray or whatever, and everything going straight to streaming, the stakes are much higher. The days of Stallone saying you're not going to make Rocky without me, those are gone. They need, that's the problem. And that's, like you guys were saying, is like, there's a lot, no matter what, there's a business model and there's people making big decisions and there's big money involved. And now I think the problem, if you will, with Hollywood and people coming in, they still need new ideas. God willing, they're not going to just remake Ghostbusters 15 times. So when you guys like you bring in a new idea or new nuance to, like, we'd be an idiot to go, well, Navy SEAL stuff works, but how do we do your version of it? What's different? You guys are subject matter experts. You guys have expanded a world where it's not just a book about tons of Navy SEALs. Like I said, like, that's the thing that I like it as a reader. So it's okay, you got this cool new thing, but now they're like, okay, now we still need a guarantee. We don't deal with like, oh, it flopped at the box office. But Matt Damon had this great thing because he makes movies behind the scenes. He talked about where if something could flop at the box office, the release of the DVD or the Blu-ray was almost like a re-release in the theaters. So they always had that ready to rock to pretty much double the flop money. Now that doesn't exist, the extremes are so much more savage right now. So the people you guys are dealing with are just looking at like, I need the closest thing to a guaranteed sell your soul, your firstborn child idea. It doesn't, okay, well, we'll put The Rock in it, or, you know, let's just make another movie The Rock, because they got to go for the guarantees. And it's like, think about like The Godfather, Rocky, those movies wouldn't be made now. And then the stakes are so askew right now that the guys, like, and I'm not saying this to like hug you, but like, you guys, God bless you, because at the end of the day, like you said, whether you have a say or not, it's because, like you said, the almost like the DOD, there's a million reasons of things happening that nobody even knows about, the civilians, if you will. So, like, you know, I'm sure you have friends and family. I know, God bless my mom. She's like, Jeff, you should be in the new Lord of the Rings. Jeff, you should be in this. I'm like, you know, Mom, I wish it were that easy. But they want guaranteed names. They want guaranteed money. And with that stuff behind the scenes, metaphorically, they need that weight, and it sucks as far as creators like you guys handing like, hey, there's this new thing we have, go make it, we know it'll work, and they're like, but will it, you know? And then there's poor bastard actors like me going, let's put a new face in this. But I get it from a producer standpoint. Put The Rock in this movie, it could suck and people still go to it. Black Adam, we won't get into it, it wasn't the best thing as a fan, but it still made the studio some money, you know? And so it's just a weird business where we all come from a place of work ethic, hard work equals this result pretty much 9.9 times out of 10. You guys could make this book and all these things and put all this work into it, and it could still, quote unquote, fail. And it's a mess. That's why we do this shotgun blast. That's why you guys write 3,000 books. I push for 4,000 rolls, just hoping one of those pellets from that shotgun blast sticks, because statistically, it's all you got is just an automatic shotgun at a side of a barn door.
I mean, one thing I thought was interesting in this last Oscars is you saw, you know, A24 sort of kicking ass. And, you know, here's a studio that's sort of known or made its reputation and that they're willing to take chances on projects that are sort of like FU projects. You know, maybe this is a project that's been turned down at 10 other shops and it finds a home at A24, and they're like, yeah, we're going to make this because guess what? We're not trying to please everybody, right? We're just going to try.
Sick of it.
Yeah. I mean, and you see a lot of this, like, you know, and I think it's definitely been amplified by the impact of social media, but it's this idea of, you know, we don't want to offend. And, you know, you look at Top Gun Maverick, and, you know, that was sort of the principle behind that movie, which is, well, we're not going to actually say who the bad guy is because, you know, we need to sell tickets in China and we need to sell tickets around the world. And so we're not going to villainize anybody. And, you know, to the credit of the studio of Skydance and Paramount, they pulled it off and they made it an extremely engaging, patriotic a movie. But I think, you know, not every subject matter lends itself to, well, we're not going to, we can make this and not piss somebody off, because that's just, you know, humans behaving badly. Sometimes you just have to show humans behaving badly because that's the world that we live in.
And you can't castrate a plot that to that extreme, because then you lose the good guy, bad guy. Like, we don't know what it's like to fight aliens. So it's like, okay, Superman versus Zod. Nobody likes Zod. He's not of a nationality. But think about like the days, and I know of our age group, 90% of Stallone's films were like anti-Russia. He fought the Russians as Rambo. He fought the Russians as a boxer. I mean, everywhere. And then, ironically, not to spoil any of the Dempsey books, but, you know, and you got to have that. And it's funny because so many people don't know. They'll literally add scenes in movies for the Chinese release or the X release to help that market. And like you said, like, it's almost disheartening, but it also explains a lot too, when you're like, oh, they actually, Top Gun was a perfect example. Like, it was just good guys versus bad guys, and almost everybody could get on board with that. But if they villainized the nationality, it's a numbers game again. What country has, like, if just to use China as a reference point, what country has a lot of bodies to go into theaters? They couldn't make the bad guy, you know, or of Chinese or of Asian nationality, because it would have killed their box office, which is a bad business move. So it's a mess, and it makes sense, but it's disheartening all at the same time. Then you got, like you said, A24 and The Whale, and people are like, just finally a movie that I just want to go see, and I don't care that it didn't crush at the box office. And then you got an amazing Brendan Fraser just crying at a podium. I watched it for the first time 2 weeks ago, and I was just like floored. I didn't need CGI. I was just floored. It was not the feel-good movie of the year, don't get me wrong, but it was awesome. They just said, F you, we're going to make a movie to entertain, and hopefully people like it, you know, and it's encouraging that they exist. A24 is a beautiful example.
Hey, Bosley, I want to ask you straight up, right here, face to face, right? Can you handle the role of Dempsey? Do you have the acting chops, or do you look around and go, you know?
Yes. I argue, and I argue, and this is pitchy, but I truly, to the root of my, like, on my mother's grave, believe this. You hire the best actor. I hate the bull crap of hire him because he's a Vite, hire him because he used to be a Green Beret, hire him because he used to be a SEAL. Those are all assets for sure. But I guarantee, and I truly mean this, God willing, I don't think I'm a crappy actor. I've been reassured I'm good. And I trust the people because I don't trust myself, which is awesome. But there's things, those assets, I'll call them the asset list. I'll be a dick here. Pretty boy Hollywood that grew up in LA that never did anything with their life. I'm not knocking them. But, and I use this phrase a lot, their spectrum of suck is way narrower than mine or a Dempsey reality person. Tons of my brothers that were in way longer and did way worse. So to sit here, I'm literally adjusting myself because I broke my back. My right leg is on fire right now just because it sucks. You can act that. An actor could interview and do his actor homework and go, Jeff, tell me what it's like to have a broken back. But to have that asset and God willing be a good actor, why not? Why not hire the guy that goes, I actually know what my spine feels like full of metal, you know? And so those are awesome. Hire the best actor, and production value, to go back to business stuff. You can save 8 hours a day or 6 weeks of actor boot camp and just get to shooting because God willing, hand me a gun. And the stuff I don't know, this goes back to anybody in the military. If you don't know, ask. like ask the guy that knows, because we don't have time for ego and all that. I'm like, okay, I don't know exactly what it's like to do tons of underwater operations. I did enough. But at the end of the day, like somebody said, we're not making War and Peace. We're not making training manuals. We're making something to entertain that passes muster, God willing, you know. And so that's the long answer of absolutely.
I want to add some context to this too, because you're right. Earlier you said like, hey, Brian and Jeff have, you know, they're digging in, and then they have to dig in deeper. And you made the classic reference, like how much caffeine and dip does it take to get through a day? Because you and I both know, like, oh, we're doubling up patrols today, and we got to go out right now. There goes the dip, bang goes the drink, pop goes the pills, and you're like, out the door, let's go, right?
Yeah.
And then you're so excited, you're like, I'm going to come back and have whatever's left of the brown lettuce we have to eat because I haven't had a vegetable in weeks.
Yep.
That level of suck is like, it's off the screen, right? And so there's a lot. And if Matthew McConaughey can get the Wooderson role because he knows that dude, you for sure know who Dempsey is. All right, I'm gonna let Jeff and Brian talk.
Yeah, so one thing that I notice about Jeff is that unlike, and there's nothing wrong with either side of this, unlike a lot of people that did their time in the military and said, oh, what the hell am I going to do now? And they gravitated towards this business. Jeff's, if you look at his resume, he was interested in this business long before he was a Green Beret. His interest in arts, in literature, in fine arts, and in acting predates his time in service. And that's very unusual. So that was one thing that jumped out to me about Jeff. This isn't him trying to become an actor. He was an actor before. And then he beefed that up with some for real education in the acting arts after his time in service. So love to see these military people that want to break in do that work. Like they're all willing to do the work to be in this team or that team. This is a business that's the same, whether you're talking about writing, and we talk to guys, military guys that want to be writers all the time. They're like, oh yeah, I want to write a book. It's like, okay, well, do you really appreciate what goes into writing a book? Like it's not just putting words on a piece of paper. There's a real craft to it. It takes years to hone the skills to be able to be an international best-selling author. And the same thing is true with acting. And so it's refreshing when you see a guy who has the pedigree, but also has done the hard lift of preparing himself for that career. And I think that's that's a soft background, right? You over prepare for everything you do.
God, yes. Well, I think first I would just genuinely, that means a lot that you said and noticed that, Jeff, like genuinely, like off the record, on the record, that means a lot you saw that, because that is, from our background, it sucks people can pull off a lot faking the funk in any of the careers any of us have shared in the real world, in fake Hollywood acting world, but eventually it's exposed. You can only fake the funk so long. And so it happens. And in Hollywood, I think, and I don't mean to badmouth it, I think you can pull off faking the funk longer than most careers, and it might work, but eventually that burns off. And I think I stand, if I was to get pitchy or like resume poppy, which is ironic because we're supposed to be quiet professionals, which obviously we've made the joke plenty of times. I'm not, in a way, but you want that to mean something. And so I genuinely, for you to notice that and reference it, I kind of, some days I'm like, God, I was a theater nerd. Give me some credit. And so like that genuinely means a lot. Like it sucks to have anybody half-assed, and to quote Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec, go whole ass into this stuff and go get the education, and if you're not going to be trained, it's playing pretend, yes. And I'm not going to get all method actor and be like, oh, I need to go eat dip for real and lose sleep. It's playing pretend. But it's nice to like kind of be recognized that even though from DOD or tough guy shooting guns worlds, there's still training. There's still an education process. And so it is weird for like me and probably guys of our ilk to acknowledge that, versus like training to use a gun versus training to be artsy fartsy. So that's my long-winded thing. Just genuinely thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, out of respect for Pete's audience, let's stop short of quoting Stanislavski at all.
I got a book here.
Yeah, the method acting. But so that resonated with me because I was also a theater geek, and when I graduated from high school, I went to the School of the Arts as an acting major before I did all the other 400 things I did. So it jumped out at me.
We just become best friends.
I took theater classes in college too, guys.
Cool.
Awesome.
Cool. And it shows.
Yes. I was at a musical last night, by the way. I got to put myself on the main screen here. I went to a fantastic musical. I love musicals, and it was so hilarious. It was like a little bit of Sweeney Todd and a little bit of Little Shop of Horrors together on this world debut down here in Southern California. So great. I love all this stuff. I love that we can talk about these different elements. I want to change gears, though, because I don't want to get past this. I hear you guys are writing a sub-thriller. That's got to be like Brian saying, finally!
Yes. Yes. And I'm going to turn that over to Brian, other than to say this last few weeks, as we dive into Act of Defiance, which is book 24 in the Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan universe that we're working on right now. I feel this is the first time since we've been together that I have felt completely inadequate and that I contribute nothing. I'm like, so is there a chapter I can write here?
Right. Seriously.
And he's been very gracious. He's like, go ahead and just write the one aboard the Washington. I'll fix it. It's going to be so, yeah, it's been a real eye opener for me. And the Navy has been amazing. As you guys may be aware, they've opened their doors to us. We've visited with Sublant. We've gotten to talk with subject matter experts from the force. But I'm so blessed to be partnered with my best friend who is a subject matter expert from the force. So it definitely makes his job easier, but it's a little humiliating. Not gonna lie.
Well, it has been really exciting for us to just see how much support we are getting from the Navy. And I mean, maybe it's, I don't know. I think it's okay for us to say this. I mean, we feel like this is an opportunity sort of like Top Gun Maverick, right? It's like, it's been since the 80s. 1984 was when Hunt for Red October came out. And that book was so instrumental in, really recruiting an entire generation of submarine officers and enlisted, warfare specialists who were going to go out in the silent service. And now, we've kind of almost come full circle because the Russian submarine fleet and the Chinese submarine fleets are very active, so we had a long period after sort of the 90s, this fall of Russia, where and it mirrors special operations as well, where the submarine community was suddenly not doing blue water sub on sub types of missions anymore because there wasn't enemy submarines out in the blue water for us to go chase. So they said, how are we going to deploy this asset that's really stealthy and really capable? And they, guess what, being the Navy, they're very smart, and they found all kinds of other missions for submarines to do, launching Tomahawk missiles, supporting special operations in Iraq and Afghanistan was and still is something that submarines do regularly, coastal surveillance and battle group escorts and drug interdiction operations and stuff like that, drug smuggling interdiction. So, there's lots of things that a submarine can do. It's just not really talked about, and I think the Navy is very excited to say, you know what, we're not going to reveal tactics and methods. And Pete, as you know, that's something we take very seriously in our craft is OPSEC. But let's showcase, what these very brave men and women. There's the submarine force, for those of you who do not know, is now integrated force. So there are women serving on submarines.
Impressive women already from our experience. Very impressive.
Very impressive. So this is our chance to sort of do that Top Gun Maverick thing and really showcase, let's put out there for the world what the submarine community can do and is doing.
And wasn't it nice of the universe to deliver it like it did to us? Like, what a blessing that on the 40th anniversary of Hunt for the Red October, which is when our book will come out, there is all of this explosion in submarine activity and the utilization of the force. And so to be able to showcase that and honor our fellow veterans and active duty service members and the amazing work that they do in that force is going to be great. And we get the opportunity to showcase the rest of the force. Like, we're going to have, we got to go aboard the Ford, as you saw, Pete. We spent some time with those sailors. We got to see flight operations aboard the newest and baddest aircraft carrier. We got to meet with a lot of F-18 aviators, some Top Gun instructors and Top Gun pilots, and fleet naval aviators to hear what they have to say about how modern naval warfare has changed. And it's dramatic. There's a lot has changed even since we were in the service. So being able to showcase all of that, what an opportunity, and to do it through something as a legacy like Clancy, man, that's just incredible.
Do you guys have to? Oh, let me ask real quick. Do you guys have to have a mastery now of that entire universe? I mean, you guys may already have familiarity, but I mean, obviously, you got to go read Hunt for Red October or something. But how much back work in the catalog is there for you guys?
Well, I think. I think we're writing book 24. What's Jack Ryan Jr. I think is 12 now. Plus, there's all the the Rainbow Six books, so Op Center books. So no, I think it's impossible. That would require us to go to school for we'd take a year off and read all those books. But we have stayed current. I think we've stayed current. We've read a lot of the old stuff, and then we're current. I think it's sort of the middle area where we don't have it all memorized. But at the same time, we've got Don and Mark Cameron and Mark Greeny and Tom Colgan to sort of fall back on and help us fill in any of those gaps that we have questions about. And
knowing that Tom Colgan, our editor at Penguin, was Clancy's editor, right? And he's been working with the estate for a long, long time. So it's a little comforting to know anything that we put in there that's stupid, Tom will know immediately because he is the subject matter expert on all things Clancy. So that gives us a little bit of room. The other thing that's fun is, like we did in Griffin, we talked about this, Pete, when the Griffin book came out. We have been given, the luxury of two things from Tom and the estate. One, don't try to write Clancy because you can't. So just write Andrews and Wilson in the Clancy universe, and that is so freeing. But we also have the opportunity here on this 40th anniversary to introduce new characters and introduce an entire new generation of warfighters and showcase them. And so those are the easy ones to write because we don't have to figure out what they did in book 11. So that helps a little bit, is having, taking advantage of that opportunity.
Jeff, I cut you off and you had a question.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's your show. Cut us off.
Yeah,
and so I'm going to.
Well played, sir. Well played.
I have a generic question for you guys, but I sincerely mean it. When you guys are writing stuff, so as authors, because every time I look at my friends at screenwriting and you guys as authors, no joke was thinking about this anytime I talk about writing, or like you said, vets, like I want to write a book. I'm flabbergasted at that headspace for that ability to do that, because I might start writing and I'm like, I just wrote Star Wars. Like I can't come up with, I can't transition and keep everything without transitioning into something I've already seen. So do you guys find it overwhelming or freeing? So if you're writing for lack of better terms, a Navy SEAL book, you have a lot of, I don't want to say competition, but that's been a lot. But like when you come to the submarine content, for the layperson, you have, like you said, Hunt for Red October. What is that Harrison Ford movie, like U-571?
Crimson
Do you find
Tide.
it freeing that? Yes, thank you. Do you find it freeing that you're like, oh, I'm, no pun intended, I'm going into new waters here? Or do you find it a little bit overwhelming because you're like, oh, I actually am, I'm a big target now because there isn't a lot of this out there? Like, is that comforting or warm and fuzzy, or both?
I mean, I think for submarine books, the challenge is that, and that's the reason why there's two reasons why there aren't tons of them. Number one, because not a lot of submarine folks write thrillers. Okay, that's one. The other is it's a challenge, I think, to sort of give agency to an entire crew. You know, an entire submarine is now having to engage in the tracking and the battles, you know, so to speak, right? Whereas with a unit, you can have gunplay, you can have chase scenes, you can have these things that happen that it's very hard to take and expand to an entire platform without lots of people dying, right? Because the stakes are so high in a sub-on-sub engagement. You know, somebody's going to fire a torpedo, and if they win, you know, 120 other people die instantly. And then, you know, that match is over. You know, it's over and it's done. So I think that there's some art to, in Red October, I think did it really, really well. There's some art to how you have to unfold this cat and mouse and give a satisfying battle. And also there's going to be some artistic license, shall we say, you know, where we're going to have to maybe do some things that aren't true or wouldn't really happen just for the sake of the drama.
Yeah, and that's the flip side, right? Like, so I guess the answer, Jeff, is both, which you offered us. There is that element of, you know, and it's true in special warfare, special operations as well, right? Like, you're not going to write about the 4 days in a row that you had the same omelet at the right at the KBR, because it's really, really boring. And so we have to take some of that liberty in the submarine books as well. But I think if you talk, here's how we comfort ourselves with that aspect of it. If you talk to any Hornet driver, and we've talked to a bunch of them about Top Gun Maverick and the reality of the aviation, they'll laugh and say, oh my God, it was all so silly and blah, blah, blah. But every one of them says, but it was one of my favorite movies. And so there is a balance that can be struck to glamorize it, to make it exciting, and still honor the ethos and professionalism of the men and women in the force and the real hard work that they do. So, you know, finding that balance might be a little bit of work, but it's there for us, I think.
Hey, let me get your guys' final thoughts, because you guys are busy and you got to get back to writing. It's been too damn long since you had pens in your hands. So why don't you go ahead and go first, and then we'll go from there.
Go for what now?
Oh, just whatever final thoughts you have, Brian.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that we got this group together and had Jeff on too, because you know, we've been trading emails with Jeff. He's been reading this, like he said, he's doing his homework. He's been reading this series. And I guess, you know, sort of my final thought is maybe just a question to Jeff, which is,
oh God,
I'll put you on the spot a little bit. What is it about Dempsey you think that makes him, you know, resonate with you? This makes him different than just sort of like all the other, you know, carbon copy heroes that we see in movies and in books?
I can very, very easily answer that. Is because he's not a superhero. His back aches, his thigh aches. And like, that's the thing. And I fight this tooth and nail when it comes to these superhero characters, is some actor can take Hollywood vitamins and be impenetrable and not vulnerable. Or you can do a movie or TV show or book where he wakes up and drinks a fifth of Jack and he has trauma over his wife dying or whatever. But the thing that resonates with me is, but that you've exposed that light switch. And I genuinely think that that's the thing all of us relate to on some level of like, sounds really macho, but yeah, I'm here, I'm aching. If somebody kicked in my door and I heard my girl scream, that light switch, pain and my spine injuries and all that will go away, but it'll come back later because I'm a freaking human. And I think that's what resonates with him is we wouldn't care about Superman if kryptonite didn't exist. Like we see, oh God, he's weak, he's tired or whatever. And the thing about Dempsey in these books is we actually see him tired and weak. Like you said, question his life of acute, kill the bad guy, go home and it's done. And now he's got to be these gray decisions and these big picture decisions. And so that's the thing I'm seeing as the books evolve is that resonates so holistically with me is he's human. And obviously, like you said, it's not a training manual. It's got to be entertaining, but it still is grounded in a reality that I, at a very, very personal level, relate to. Like, yeah, I'm sitting here, I'm aching. If I had to go run to an exploding truck, I could do it. If I had to do X, Y, and Z that Dempsey did, I could do it. So I relate to it very personally, but I don't think you have to be Jeff Bosley to get it. You can relate to that as my neighbor down the street, my mom, like she can go, oh, he's human. I relate to him. I relate to what it's like to be tired and exhausted and have to make tough decisions. And yet he still does entertaining superheroic stuff, which is what draws us to the hero's journey to be super artsy. That's why we love Superman, that he recovers from kryptonite and still kicks Zod's ass, you know. But now you found a reality-based human being that I now as Jeff Bosley relate to. So I'm like, oh, I just want to sleep. I need to take a Motrin. I need a massage. I need somebody to fix my spine. But he still finds a way. And because of that third person writing, you guys talk about his pain. You joke about the earwig getting lost in his ear. That literally, I emailed the guys about this. I literally did a covert job where my earwig got lost in my big ass ear canal. And I was like, come on, man. It's the reality of being a human and yet doing superhuman things. And I'm floored by that. I get the chills. I've teared up more times than I can count when he goes through those things. So he's here and mission accomplished here. So like, if it's just this little win, it doesn't care. We don't have an emotional connection to that win.
Jeff Bosley. I'm going to let Jeff Wilson. I got to get these guys out of here. So I love this. Jeff Wilson. Anything in closing?
Oh, just, you know what? I think that we'd be remiss if we didn't take every opportunity, especially with a large audience like you have, to say how grateful we are for the opportunities we've been given by Penguin and the Clancy estate, by our great friends at Blackstone who have gotten us into the Hollywood scene as well as showcased our novels, and mostly just to our friends in the community who have supported us in all the communities we're from and our readers. Like, we're so grateful that every day I get to wake up. Yeah, it's busy now. It's hard work, harder than maybe we expected, but I get to get up every day and do something really, really fun with my best friend. Like, what do I have to complain about? So we are just really grateful for the opportunities that we've had and all the people that have been instrumental in giving those to us.
All right, I'm going to wrap this thing up. If you guys got to go. Otherwise, stay by and we'll chat for 1 minute.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by